Okay, shalom. Right, different setup with the video today. This is me inside the Sukkah, and it's just a very brief teaching regarding the whole concept of Gog and Magog war and how the Sukkah is a remedy against that effect. What exactly is the Gog and Magog war? It's a war against our own minds, and how the Sukkah provides a remedy for that in some way. Just reading out the art scroll Machzor on about the Haftarah, and I'm going to read some commentary regarding Rabbi Hirsch. There's a few things that we can tie together with this, and it's wonderful if you can understand this. It's very, very profound indeed. It's got lots of influences that attack our minds, that are equivalent to the last war is the war of our minds, the last Gog and Magog war. There's 3 wars in total. The last one is the war against our own minds. So we've got to be very vigilant what influences that we are under the attack from, and how these manage to seep into our consciousness and prevent us from having true divine awareness. Okay, so from Zechariah, I'm just going to read you the first couple of verses. It says, "Behold, God's awaited day is coming, and your spoils will be divided in your midst. I shall gather all the nations to Jerusalem to wage war. The city will be conquered, the home plundered, and the women violated. Half the city will go into exile, but the rest of the people will not be cut off from the city. Then Hashem will go out and wage war against those nations, as on the day he warred the day of battle." Now, Rabbi Hirsch has got some wonderful commentary, and like I say, this is in the art scroll Machzor for Sukkah. His commentary is really very profound. It says, prominent in the Haftarah subjects of Sukkah is a war of Gog and Magog, the cataclysmic series of battles that will result in the final redemption and the Messianic era. Cataclysmic series of battles, not just one. The Haftarah and the first day, the Haftarah of the first day and that of the Shabbat of Kol HaMoed deal with this war. According to Rashi, this topic is related to Sukkot because of the prophecy that those nations who would survive the wars would join Israel every year in celebrating the Sukkot festival. So I've been to Jerusalem quite a number of times for Sukkot, and there's a march to Jerusalem every year of the nations, and I've participated in that march, in my early walk, and I've also witnessed it. And they come from literally every nation. It's quite a phenomenon to see, and literally all the Jews are lining the streets watching this whole parade of the nations go past during Sukkot. So Nimachei Yosef to Megillah quoted a tradition from Rabbi Hai Gaon that the victory over Gog and Magog will take place in the month of Tishrei, the month of Sukkot. Rabbi Hirsch from Numbers 29:13 discusses the inner connection between Gog and Magog and Sukkot. Following is a free rendition of his theses. In the name Gog, and it's spelt Gimel Vav Gimel, one recognises the word Gag, roof. So the most significant aspect of the whole Sukkah is the Gag, the roof, the Sahak. Okay. So there's a connection, because it's got to provide more shade than let light in. But obviously you're fully exposed to the elements, it's made of plant, and you've got to allow for the elements to be able to enter into the Sukkah. You're not allowed to completely block it off. But also you can see the stars through it. Right, so it's a very special construction, and the Gag is very much a very important aspect of that. So in the name Gog, one recognises the word Gag, roof, and thereby at once sees the contrast to Sukkah, the weak, unstable covering of foliage. It's got to be plant-based. Actually, the whole history of mankind consists of this contrast. Just as people have the power to make themselves safe and secure against their earthly contemporaries by sturdy walls, so they can delude themselves into thinking that they can make themselves safe and secure against that which comes from above, against God. and his power to direct matters, his sovereignty and authority. People think they can protect themselves against his sovereignty and authority, okay, or what they perceive God to be, okay. They've got a corrupted version of who they think God is, for a start, that they would want to protect against him. His power to direct matters. They think that they can find security in the protection of their own might, take their fate into their own hands, and crown the building of the human greatness with gabbled roofs, rendering them independent of God. The war of Gog and Magog is the battle of Gog roof against Sukkah, the fight of the roof illusion of human greatness, and which never allows rest against the Sukkah, truth of cheerful confidence and serenity, which comes from placing one's trust in God's protection. Okay, so the Sukkah is to protect us. Rabbi Hirsch's exposition of the Gog and Magog relationship bases itself on the Hebrew grammatical rule that the prefix mem, the letter mem, expresses the idea of projecting something. For example, or, which means light, and me-or, luminary, is a heavenly body which projects light. So too, Gog means roof. In Rabbi Hirsch's view, it represents the philosophy that man can insulate himself against the heavenly power of Gog, Magog. So you've got Gog and Magog, like or and me-or, but in a very negative way. Where you've got light and luminary, you've got this Gog and Magog. Okay, so this influence that emanates out into the world from the nation's philosophy, that can insulate himself against it represents the philosophy that man can insulate himself against the heavenly power of God, or man's understanding of what God is, in an attempt to project this philosophy on earth. Okay, this is extremely powerful. Why? Right, it's extremely powerful because Rabbi Hirsch has pointed something out that I had previously come across myself. I've done a lot of analysis into the influence of Greek philosophy within the three main Abrahamic religions, and the absolute corruption of those religions as a consequence, because it's basically this Gog and Magog. It's very lofty thoughts, is Greek philosophy. There's so much like high levels of wisdom, but as I've pointed out before, it comes from a place, and I even went through this on last lesson, it comes from a place where people just simply can't figure out God at all. Their understanding of God is like this unknowable God. So now within all these three Abrahamic religions, where God has made himself known to us through the name Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh and his 13 attributes of mercy, suddenly we have adopted Greek philosophy, which tells us God is totally and utterly unknowable. And then we've got this Kabbalistic concept called Ein Sof, the infinitely unknowable God. And this is a very, very big enemy that needs total destruction. So let's just have a look at where it origins from, the consequences of it, and how we've got to return to our knowledge of God. It's like God says, don't believe in gods that you did not know. And the concept of an unknowable God is exactly that. It goes against the entire Torah. We are not supposed to believe in gods we did not know. But the whole concept of Greek philosophy is to believe in gods that we didn't know. Right, so let me just try and understand where this whole concept of Gog and Magog comes from. So in Greek philosophy, the main philosophy was born on the islands of Greece, the Greek islands, right? And there's a certain mindset that develops when you are living on a small island, and especially when you have to rely so heavily upon the seas and things like that, especially when tragedy befalls, because suddenly, you know, God's there providing you all your food and all your sustenance, and then all of a sudden an entire ship full of men can go down, and on every single island this tragedy is repeated. And in those places where you just cannot fathom God at all, you know, you can understand where Greek philosophy is born, where they believe that God is so far away, doesn't even care about us down in this world, because look, the tragedy proves it. You know, we have to go out and onto the sea for our life, yet the sea takes all our family, all our loved ones, all that are close to us. And this is a big tragedy. People can't cope with this. I lived on an island myself, and I know of this tragedy. It's on every single island that you will ever come across, especially the small islands, and it devastates entire communities at times. And there's this very, very bitter history associated with that. So you can understand how Greek philosophy is born from that context. God is unfathomable. From that small perspective, that insular perspective, is totally unfathomable. You know, so you can see how they're searching for meaning and coming up with making wrong conclusions. But this conclusion is because the Greeks are very beautiful, they're very literate, they're very beautiful, they're very creative, they're very artistic, and Greek philosophy is wonderful. I mean, it does lure you in, it's got a certain beauty to it. But how is that different from what we've been told regarding the name of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh? The word God is exactly equivalent to nature in Hebrew. They both got the same gematria, 86, nature and God. The entire of creation is filled full of unfathomable knowledge of God, of creation, all the laws, all the intricacies, all the way things have been created, from, you know, matter into living organisms and everything. It's an incredibly unfathomable. No one person could know everything that there is to know about the God of creation. If you are to understand God in terms of all the different processes with which creation came into being, it's an unknowable, infinitely unknowable and unfathomable nature. So if your understanding of God is this, and you are trying to understand God in terms of the processes of creation alone, then you can understand how God then becomes unfathomable. It's truly unfathomable. It's an incredible mystery how living organisms came to be, and the unique nature of the environment that facilitated those processes, those early processes that then went on to form life. It's unfathomable. Even to the top scientists of the world, we still have so many questions left unanswered. Quantum physics, for example, you know, subatomic level physics, it's unfathomable, it's still unknowable. So if this is your God, you can understand how you get the concept of unknowable, and you're trying to protect against this God, this unknowable, unfathomable God, this unknowable, unfathomable God of nature. You are trying to protect against that. So you're coming up with all kinds of lofty ideas to insulate you from this unknowable, unfathomable nature in which man has to reside. Okay, and the horrendous consequences of being subject to nature, like going out on the sea and meeting your end. But we are told quite clearly, Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh is our God. What we experience within creation, even though it's an unknowable set of laws and processes that no one man can possibly comprehend, we are told Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh is God. What does that mean? That means the 13 attributes of mercy are responsible for every single law and every single process within nature. It's all towards that end, i.e. a revelation of the name of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh, not a revelation of an unknowable God. The unknowable should reveal the knowable, okay? Not present us with this void that we then need to fill with our own intellectual lofty thoughts to try and insulate us and protect us against that that's unknowable. So that's where it deviates from the Abrahamic faiths, where an unknowable God was made known to man. Through the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, we know the one who created all these unfathomable processes is knowable to us. And because we know him, we also have that assurance when we are faced with something unknowable, we are within the shelter of his name. Okay, so we don't need to feel threatened or intimidated, or we don't need to feel like we need to insulate us against that unknowable, mysterious, unfathomable God called nature. Okay, so that's what we've got to distinguish. Greek philosophy, however, doesn't. But this philosophy has found its way into all the major Abrahamic faiths, and it's in fact the esoterical teachings. What should be there is a concept of Moshiach ben Yosef, the true inner secret teachings, the mysterious way that Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh has been working throughout entire history to bring about a rectification of the entire of physical reality, to be able to be rectified to contain a revelation of the absolute authority and oneness of his name. Everything works towards that end. And when we know the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, we have got that confidence no matter what happens. We know that everything is towards a good end, to bring all humanity to a place of rectification and all creation to a place of rectification, and for us to enter back into that state of Gan Eden and even higher. So that's where we're heading. And sometimes we can, when we are suffering and when we are subject to the forces of nature without the protection of the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, it can feel very threatening to us, and we can start to want to put things in place to protect us from that. But we don't actually need protection from that if we have got as our protector the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, and that's where the Sukkah comes in, because it's just to remind us of the power of the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh. So take that, because I had a recent argument with, I want to link that up to a recent argument. I think I talked about this, I certainly talked about this in some of the reels that I've done on Facebook. I had a debate with a Kabbalist on this matter of the adoption of Greek philosophy, Neoplatonism within Judaism. And as I questioned the entire concept of Ein Sof as understood within Judaism at this time, the Kabbalistic understanding of Ein Sof, the infinitely unknowable God. And I basically said that he quoted me, your thoughts are not my thoughts. I'm going to pull you it up now from Isaiah and just read it to you. I'll just knock myself off whilst I read this to you. So he basically said this: seek the Lord when he is found, call him when he is near. He didn't quote that, I'll get to it in a minute. The wicked shall give up his way, and the man of iniquity his thoughts, and he shall return to the Lord, who shall have mercy upon him, and to our God, for he will freely pardon. Okay, so we're talking about wicked people that have to change and that return to the Lord, return to Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, okay, who shall have mercy upon him, and to our God, for he will freely pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, says Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh. So Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh is speaking to the wicked people here. Okay, the wicked shall give up his way. And this is how wicked people sometimes think. They want God to be far away so they can get on and complete sins that they'd rather be doing than serving Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh with love and joy and imitating his holy name through thought, word and deed. So this, my thoughts are not your thoughts. The Kabbalists who believe in this concept of Ein Sof are saying that we have no way of knowing the thoughts of God, but this is not true. He's made his name known to us. We are children of the King, literally children of the King, who has made his name known to us, who has made himself known to us, and who is continually reminding us to remember him and not forget. Okay, and there's all kinds of prophecy which talks about the knowledge of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh shall cover the earth as the waters cover the sea. This is where we're heading. We are not heading to a place where, like in Greek philosophy, what we know is that we know nothing. What we know is that we know the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, and in doing so we know his will and the purpose and meaning for the entire of creation. It's knowledge that needs restoring. Our knowledge of God is what fell, and it's our knowledge of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh that needs to be restored. Okay, so that's one way of countering these people that have an understanding that God is infinitely unknowable. Okay, let me just bring myself back on. So you've got to take, this is the wicked man. This house is disconnected to the Sukkah, because we've got the lulav, and the lulav is composed of 4 species. So you've got the etrog, which are the most righteous in the community. You've got the date palm, which is second most righteous. You've got the myrtle, which is the third most righteous, and then you've got the willow, which is the rasha, the wicked ones. And on Hoshana Rabbah, you take the willow and you beat it on the floor, and then there's a tradition that you then throw the beaten willow on top of the Holy Ark in the synagogue. When you go into the synagogue and do the Hoshana Rabbah service, then you beat the willow on the floor and you throw it onto the Holy Ark. But there's a different tradition, and I know this because when my Israeli friend came over, he did it. He took his willow, bearing in mind the willow turns black. Like, I went down to pick up my lulav from the Jewish community this year, and we had to search the entire bag for a willow that wasn't already blackened in some way. They always turn black. All the leaves, by the time it gets to the end of Sukkah, they're basically nearly all black. Some people, I think, replace them. But obviously we're up in Scotland. I had to make a 3-hour journey down and a 3-hour journey back. I can't go pick up willow. And it's very specific willow that you've got to use as part of the lulav. So they turn black. These are the rasha of the community, but if you don't include them, your lulav is not valid. You don't perform the mitzvah of waving the 4 species during Sukkah. They've got to be included, else it's invalidated. But you take the willow and beat it on the ground and then throw it on the ark. But there is another tradition that you throw it on the top of the sehak. Why would that be? Why would that be so important a tradition? Because there's a great teaching in it that's related to this whole concept of Gog and Magog. Bearing in mind the sehak, the covering of the sukkah, is the gag, the roof. So the willow gets cast on top of the roof. We, who are aware of the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, are sat within the protective cover of the sukkah. We are dwelling in the mitzvah itself, the mitzvah to dwell in sukkah for 7 days. The wicked that doesn't know the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, that just believes in this philosophical, unknowable God of nature, is out looking up at the stars directly. The roof of the sukkah has got to have more shade than light, but you are still able to see the stars through the sahak, the roof. You are still able to see the elements, but you are within the sukkah, and you invite all the holy guests, the 7 shepherds, to dwell with you in the sukkah for these 7 days, 1 for each night. So there's an incredible holiness and awareness of the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh within. But when you're just on the roof, all that's in front of you is the vast open skies at night, totally unprotected, just totally and completely exposed to the vastness, the infinite vastness of the sky and the stars at night. And this is where Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh doesn't desire for you to be. He doesn't want you to have this wicked mindset, just as what we talked about, for my thoughts not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. It's easy to abandon hope in the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh and adopt this philosophical, unknowable God of nature. But we are clearly told Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh is our Eloheinu. We are to be, our experience of the outside elements have got to be within the context of the knowledge of the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, and not devoid of it. Not devoid of it as what we find in Greek philosophy, a totally unknowable, infinite God who shows very little interest in what our experience as a human within all the natural aspects to human life as to be found within creation. So this is a very, very big lesson, because it's sometimes difficult when we are faced with those outside elements in our everyday life to remember under whose protection we actually are and dwell. And when we have not got his name before us always, we will have something there instead. And we'll fill in the gaps. When we haven't got 100% confidence in the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, we will have confidence in something else. And you see, when we haven't got confidence, 100% confidence in the knowledge that we have of the mercy of his name to protect us in every single circumstance that we will face as a human in this world, where we've got a lack of confidence, there will be something else there instead that is not that name, i.e. some force of Satan which represents the gods of the nations. So the degree to which we depart from having Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh before us always, and knowledge of his name and his mercy and his love and his kindness and his forgiveness and his grace and his compassion, when we haven't got that before us always, we're going to move towards these gods of the nations, the Greek philosophical concepts of gods, other gods beside. We will have something there instead that's occupying our attention, that'll usually lead to fear and hopelessness and disappointment, rather than the love and joy that we get from knowing his name and serving him with love and joy. So this is a very powerful teaching, and I pray that you are all benefited from it. I pray that you are able to dwell in his holy name and really feel connected to that, and you don't feel exposed to the elements in and of themselves, but you know that when we are exposed to life, and we're all exposed to life, the Sukkah doesn't protect us completely. I've been rained on since I've been in here. The wind blows, like I say, you can see the stars at night. You're still exposed to all the elements, but within the protection of the holy name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, you are experiencing that. You're not just cast like the Rasha upon the roof to gaze up at the stars and just wonder what it's all about. Okay, and with that I will say Shalom. Oops, can't stop it. Just wait a minute.